Hey there, Wolfpack fans. It's me again, Kenton Gibbs, bringing you another episode of Locked On Wolfpack. This is part 2 of the conference realignment episode, and I'd like to thank LinkedIn Jobs for being the official college football recruiting sponsor across the Locked On College Football Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at lockedon.com. I'm sorry, at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions do apply. Now, in the last episode, I talked a lot about how the ACC at large was going to be affected by conference realignment. In this episode, I'm going to talk about NC State in particular, as well as the rumors that are floating around about different teams who could go here, who could go there, who could be absorbed here, who could be absorbed there. And I'm going to correct a few things that I saw that I got a little wrong. So we're going to get into all that and more in this episode of Locked On Wolfpack.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So before I get into anything else, I've got to talk obviously about the fact that there are rumors of certain teams, or there's speculation of certain teams who could go to other conferences already, mainly the SEC, because of course, this is where we're located. And there was an article written by Brett McMurphy that specifically, named a few teams. So I'm going to read this excerpt about don't expect the SEC to sit idly by. With the Big Ten's impending monster media rights deal, don't expect the SEC to stand pat. Even by adding Oklahoma and Texas, the SEC is not going to sit back and watch the Big Ten and let things happen, the source said. The SEC will likely target current ACC schools such as Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina, or Virginia, sources said. However, those schools would have to find a way out of the ACC's grant of rights, which do not expire until 2036. Maybe the SEC pursues Oklahoma State to join OU in the league, or adds other Big 12 schools. Everything that seemed impossible just a few years ago is now a possibility, an industry source said about future realignment moves. Now, again, here's the thing more than anything else. This is a situation where people are talking about different schools that could go and different teams that are, big brands and all that good stuff. And of course, when you're talking about big brands, the joke about the University of No Consequences fans is that they're Walmart fans, because throughout a lot of Walmarts, for whatever reason, throughout not just this region of the country, you'll see the stuff from the Tar Heels as far as their not memorabilia, but like their paraphernalia, I guess, or, stuff along those lines. But anyway, I've already talked about Florida State and how massive they are. Clemson is getting up there. They're getting in that same territory because of how much they won and because of how big of a draw that they've become. However, that may be coming to an end soon. Who knows? And Virginia as well, just an absolute mammoth in college basketball in terms of how much people care about that program. So there's a lot to be said for these different programs and where they could go. But I think that the most important part, because I may have misspoke earlier when I said that the ACC is, well, maybe I didn't. The grant of rights holds through the next 14 years. So maybe I was being a little hasty saying that in the next 3 or 4 years, we could see teams leave the ACC. But here's the thing. Even with the grant of rights holding for as long as it is, it's possible that the new conference absorbs the cost and says, you know what? The benefit of taking you and you and you outweighs the cost of having to pay a heavy lump sum out front, or we foot, 50% of the bill or whatever percent of the bill you foot the rest, and, we break off from there. But it's a thing that again, when I'm looking at this episode in particular and how it impacts NC State, I think that the goal here for NC State and NC State fans in particular, the call to action of, how do we get into a position to where we could be going? Look at the teams that are being mentioned and what they have done recently. As much as I would like to feel like I am, don't get me wrong, in terms of life in general, I'm only 27 years old, just turned 27 very recently. I'm relatively young. However, if I'm talking about in terms of how long ago I played football, and this is important because the last time Florida State was relevant, I was playing. That's the last time. It's been about what 5, 6 years, 6 years now, 6, yeah, 6 years. It's been some time. So with that being said, it should be clear that these this is not about, again, who's winning in the revenues generating sports. It's not about that. It's not. It's about who's the biggest draw, who's the biggest fish, who's going to get the most money via media rights and all that good stuff. So the call to action for NC State fans is be more diligently dedicated to watching, finding whatever you can on NC State, regardless of how deep it is buried on that horrible valley. Oh, God, valley is just the worst. Anyway, regardless of where it is, go find it, go watch it. And I want y'all to notice something, okay? Have you noticed that when I talk about NC State fans, even when I talk about the loud minority, I always say for the most part, we're great. And even that loud minority, I don't really mind them all that much. And let me tell you why. Part of what makes the big draw, part of what makes all those things, even if you say, oh, they're black helicopter people and all that, we're people that care. People that care. People that care generate into views, generate into clicks, generate into all the things that make revenue in today's world. So keep doing that at a higher level. If you're watching this, you're probably deeply enthralled in NC State sports. But your challenge is to go get your friends, go get fellow graduates, go get people you're cool with who like, oh, I don't like Keith, so I stopped watching. Oh, I think Doran's only good for 8 games, so I stopped watching. All those folks, you need to get them back going, get them back involved, get them back watching, get them back clicking, get them back talking about it, because the bigger the draw, the more likely you are to get a favorable deal to be one of the early teams to go out of the ACC. If your belief is that the ACC, that NC State leaving the ACC is a beneficial thing, and I'm going to say this: there's another part of this that is very interesting. That I saw a tweet about somebody saying, "Oh man, if the ACC were to go, it'd be such a shame. The conference that wantonly defended our rivals and said nothing to ever stand by us at any point of getting screwed over by the NCAA at multiple points, had officiating that was terrible, and I'd like to throw in, have a network that at times they have a lot of good talent, which is surprising as to how the talent doesn't come together to make that a good network. You know what I mean? Like as individuals, they have a lot of really good talent covering those games. It's just like, this just for some reason is not really coming together. So with that being said, again, it's a very interesting space to be in. And again, I agree with the folks who say, hey, listen, if the ACC goes down more, it is what it is. I would very simply say this. The reality is, if NC State goes to a new conference, if NC State stays in the ACC, if the ACC stays, if the ACC is dissolved, either way it goes, NC State would not be viewed as a blue blood. Now, the question is, will there be more fairness? Will there be more transparency and decency out of the new conference than we get out of the ACC? It's possible. It's also possible it could be worse. Like we can tell ourselves, oh yeah, we know that it can't get any worse than what we had with the ACC. Not so sure. Not so fast, my friend. So there's a lot to think about here and a lot to consider. But that's the nature of the beast with so many things changing and shifting so quickly. So there's a lot. And another thing that's changing and shifting is this job market. As the sun comes out and small businesses are back in business, LinkedIn Jobs makes it easier to grow your team. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the people you want to interview faster and for free. Trust me, I am a technical recruiter. I use it all the time. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. And did you know that every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. So I'm going to look at this from two different perspectives, okay? Or well, rather, there's four different situations that could come out of this, okay? There is a situation where the ACC, two situations in both of these situations that I'm about to present to you. The ACC can still exist in 5 to 10 years. The ACC could also not. Now, here's the thing. In that time, you could have the ACC existing and NC State still being in a conference that is in a good spot, or NC State existing in a conference that's not in a great spot. You could also have the ACC either not existing or NC State being out of the ACC as it exists. So it's a lot of possibilities to go at here, but I think that we are in a very precarious. I don't know. Anyway, I think we're in a very peculiar. That's the word I was looking for. We're in a very interesting spot here. Sorry, words beat me up there. Anyway, we're in a very interesting spot here. That this is we're in a place where, if we're being honest with ourselves, being a blue blood, having all the attention, having all the fans that never attended your school, never even thought about college, it's kind of part of being a big national brand and all that good stuff. With that being said, it's still a moment where you've got to be honest with yourself and say, if we don't get our numbers up more, and it's not to say that we have terrible numbers now, because I'm not sure. I'm not going to tell you that I know for a fact what our numbers are compared to the rest of the conference, but I know for a fact that if we get folks back on board and back caring deeply about NC State sports and watching NC State sports at watching, streaming, whatever, at all costs, we put ourselves in a better position. And with that being said, if the ACC still exists in a weakened version, honestly and truly, like, who cares? Because all these things are cyclical, and we can pretend like, this is, I think the end game here is to have an entity that functions completely separately, or at least a majority separately from the NCAA. That's what I think the end game is here with all the realignment and whatnot. It feels like the end game is having a situation where there is not a ton of NCAA rules and regulations, or there is an external body that it kind of functions in a way to make the process of paying players or salaries or whatever the case may be a little bit smoother for football and basketball than some of the other sports. Now, when that day comes, and I could be wrong here, I could be very wrong here, but when that day comes, again, I think NC State will be in a good spot, because we have a program where, again, we're looking at the largest institute in this largest educational institute in the state of North Carolina. Like, we're looking at a very, very big student base. We're looking at a situation where we have a lot of alumni. We have a ton of donors. We have all the things. So it really just becomes a point of keep winning. Fans keep tuning in. Everything should be fine. I don't think that we're in a bad position. I think that some schools who, people talked about how Maryland jumped conferences and all that, and how they ended up in a hole that they're still fighting to get out of and all that. And that's, you don't want to end up being a school that's in a similar position because you tried to buy out of your grant of, or what is it? Grant of rights? Yeah, grant of rights. Or you don't want to be that school. You don't want to be that school that you are looking at a point where you're like, all right, you're in a bad spot. You cannot. There's no way around it. You can't do anything about it. Like, you don't want to be there. You don't want to be there. But with that being said, again, I don't think NC State is there. I think we're in a great spot right now, and I think that this is a time of a lot of uncertainty. And again, I'm telling you right now, I don't have the answers. I don't know for sure what's going to happen. But what I'll also tell you is anybody who purports to have the answers, anybody who purports to have the future and know, oh, I know that this team, and this team are going here and this is happening there, they're lying to you. They're lying to you. Because trust me, I have knocked on doors, I have turned over leaves, I have done the looking and the reason into like, all right, what's going on here? What's the next play for NC State? What's the next play for the ACC at large? And I'm telling you, this is a moment where while everybody is telling you like everything is under control, you kind of get the sense and the feeling that there's some uneasiness and that everybody is trying to feel their way through the dark and navigate a space that we haven't been in our lifetime. We haven't been in a space to where we see this much movement from this many marquee blue chip, or not blue chip, but what blue blood, the programs that are huge names. We haven't seen this. We haven't. Not this many, not all at the span of, again, we could take Texas A&M out and just talk about Oklahoma and Texas up through USC and UCLA. Those are some big names in those conferences to be leaving. And so when you look at that, we haven't seen this. This is uncharted territory. This is a lot like many things that are going on in the world politically, where people are trying to say, I know that this is going to happen. I know that that's going to happen. Again, that may be because history has a little bit more of a track. You can kind of figure out where certain things are going. But again, in terms of sports, you just don't know. So if there is a world where the ACC stays together and for the most part, and NC State is still in it, again, I think that'll be fine. If the ACC stays together and NC State is no longer in it, I am 100% positive that we'd end up in a Power Five instead of like a Group of Five or independent or something like that. Because again, NC State is big enough, is large enough, has a big enough viewer base, I believe, to warrant being in, the SEC or the Big Ten South or whatever happens there. So, I think that everything will work itself out and be all right in that way. But I would hope that NC State would end up in the SEC as opposed to the Big Ten, because that Big Ten travel is just going to be absolutely brutal unless they absorb the Pac-12 and right away. And even if they do, it's still going to be brutal for a team like NC State, because then you're looking at not only the other side of the country in terms of going west, you're also looking at going north to the other side of the country virtually, even though North Carolina is not super deep south geographically, you get the point. So yeah, this is again uncharted territory, uncharted waters. And again, I am here to tell you I don't have the answers. I am sure that there are people with more sources than me that have more information than me. But what I can tell you is unless the folks that I've talked to are like lying to me and throwing me off a trail intentionally, nobody knows anything very, very, very in depth as far as like, okay, this is going to be the next domino to fall. I bet my house on it. And I'm telling you, I can just say that the folks that I've spoken to go pretty far up the ladder, and I haven't heard anything about immediate future. I know the next domino, or NC State is the next domino. I have heard nothing in that range. But also the folks that Brett McMurphy said, I've tapped folks who have the sources over there and asked, hey, what's going on? And they were just like, it's just talk. They just use the 4 biggest fan base and all that good stuff. That's just how that worked. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right, cool. Because there's nothing substantiated in any way, shape, form, or fashion. So right now, it's kind of just like a holding pattern until the next move is struck, or until something starts to materialize in the way of, okay, the next move may not be struck, but you can see things being constructed and swayed and moved in a way for that next move to go out there. So that's just what I'm hearing. That's just what I'm going to tell you all. And another thing I'm going to tell you all is that BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to check on all your favorite sporting and events like MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. So I'm about to land this thing, but I hope that these 2 episodes have done a little bit to just provide you on everything that I know, and that this is very, very different waters than anything we've seen. We're in an interesting time. To say that I know where this is going, again, that would be a bold-faced lie. But don't be shocked. Don't be shocked if this ends in college football kind of being a separate entity than a vast majority of other college athletics. Don't be shocked, because if it does, you heard it here first, or a certain subset of sports being separated from the rest in some way. Don't be shocked if that happens. You heard it here first, all right? Thank you all so very much for coming out and listening to this 2-parter. I know it was a lot of information. I hope it was good information. I hope that you got something worthwhile out of it. Apologies if you didn't. Again, I'm never going to tell you a lie. I'm never going to tell you something that I didn't hear or that I can't confirm, or that I'm telling you what I know. I'm telling you what I've heard. That's all I can tell you. That's all I'll ever tell you, all right? Thank you all so very much for coming out. Y'all make this show what it is. I came back after not recording for nearly 2 weeks to see that my numbers were like through the roof, and I was shocked. But darn it, I appreciate y'all. It means so much to me to see y'all coming through for me the way that y'all do every single time. I appreciate y'all. Y'all make this show what it is. Peace and love, y'all. And as always, go Pack.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.